Well, Anton's not here, but I'd like to thank him for inviting me to share a message this morning. Um, yeah, what a time to give a message on waiting. I know that there's a lot happening in our personal lives, but there's just certain times in history where you look out the world and say, is there really a God? You know? Um, just to see what sort of destruction weapons manufactured in our country are able to achieve. Um, bloodlines from some of the first Christians on earth are at risk. it's a it's a terrible time, but the story isn't completely over. We're at a period in the story where we don't know how it will end, but we hope for the God that we have come to know in our personal lives, the God that has we've experienced in those moments of trial and moments of distress. We hope that that God will prevail. And I was thinking about focusing a message on that, the struggle that we're in today, but I decided to just share a different story about personal waiting, one that had a conclusion, and a beautiful conclusion, just to highlight the importance of the waiting process. So 4 weeks ago, I was running with my dog and I sprained my ankle, and it was pretty bad, pretty swollen. And looking up on WebMD, it said it's going to take about 4 weeks to heal. You have to wear an ankle bracelet, an ankle support for about 4 weeks. So throughout that process, I was terrified my ankle would never heal. My wife was telling me stories about like people who had torn ligaments and had to wear like a boot for like a year or something. Just the worst possible things that could happen. But being stubborn, I refused to go to the hospital and just wore my ankle brace. And even last week, it just still kind of hurt. But this today marks 4 weeks, and it's gotten so good that I forgot which ankle I was supposed to put my ankle brace on. I actually put it on the wrong foot yesterday and realized that when I was putting my shoes on, I was like, wait a minute, usually this foot is looser than this one. What's going on? So that's a short little triumph. But anyways, that's not what I'm talking about. Yesterday, Tanisha and I celebrated our 8th anniversary. We went to Asheville and had a nice little time together. 8 years ago, we were married right here in this sanctuary during one of the Sunday services. It was also on my birthday, and it was a little bit of an unusual wedding because we had just met each other 3 months before, 4 months before, and a lot of folks think that that was a very short time, but it was part of a much longer waiting period. And this is kind of a silly story, so I apologize. I do not advise you to do any of these things that I did. I do not encourage you to encourage others to do any of the things that I did, but here it is anyway. So I had spent some time at Koinonia and had ended my internship, trying to figure out what to do with my life. So I had some family living here in East Atlanta Village and was kind of like couch surfing between their houses while I tried to figure out, am I going to go back to school, or because I had dropped out of school. And or if there were any other like careers that I really wanted to do. So I was invited to dog sit for my cousin. She had three dogs, and I was there taking care of them, and just, I don't know, really, really lonely, a really strong feeling of loneliness. And I had kind of always like felt like I was really missing out on having a romantic partner. I was, let's see, how old was I at that time? Like 25 or 26 or something. Does that make sense? No, maybe somewhere around there. Yeah. But so I turned on the TV and I'm flipping through the TV and there's a televangelist on the television, and he says, "Whatever you want, just pray for it, and God's going to deliver it. Whatever you want, just pray for it." And so I knew I had my concerns about televangelists for sure. But I was like, hey, I'm going to try this out. I'm just going to try this out. So I say, Lord God, please provide me a wife. And then I started thinking, and I was like, I need some direction here. So I pull out my Bible and I just flipped to a random page, put my finger down on a verse, and it said, the first day of the 7th month, the horns are going to sound and there will be great jubilation. And then I was like, okay, first day of the 7th month, wow. So then I do it again. I flip through the Bible to a different page, and it says the same thing. The first day of the 7th month, the horns will sound and there will be great jubilation. So I was like, that's it. I figured it out. July 1st, I'm going to meet my wife. So sort of couch surfing in Atlanta, my sister had a friend who posted something about an opening at a Bread and Puppet Theater for a farm manager. So that was up in Vermont. I don't know if y'all are familiar with Bread and Puppet, but it's kind of like a performing arts group that lives up in the like woods of Vermont. They do a lot of like activist things. They do a lot of like, the giant puppets at protests and demonstrations that require multiple people to like move the arms and move the body. They do that kind of thing. And so I applied, and they took me, and so I went to Vermont. So I was in Vermont that summer, and just expectingly, just like July 1st, it's gonna happen here. I'm gonna meet my wife in Vermont. It's gonna happen here. So things go along, and having a good time there at Bread and Puppet. But anyways, July 1st comes around, and part of the scripture said the horns will sound, and it was someone's birthday, and there's a lot of musicians in the group, as you can imagine, and they were playing tubas and trombones, and I heard it out my window, and I was like, it's the horns, it's happening, it's all happening. So I was so excited, but it was starting to get dark, and someone pitched up a campfire. And this is awkward for you, Dave, but there were these 3 women who came from Canada, kind of my age, and they just randomly just showed up. I mean, it was kind of like a community group and community vibes at Bread and Puppet, so people kind of popped in and out all the time. But yeah, they showed up at the fire, and I was talking to them, and then there was one that I was like talking to more, and we were having a good time, and then she got tired, so she went to bed, and then I went to bed, and I was just sort of excited. I was like, this is it. This is the one. This is the woman. This is her. But anyways, when I went to bed, this is where it's like, if you stop believing me here, go ahead, by all means. So I went to bed, and I was laying down, and this giant moth flew into my room. I mean, this thing had to be like this big, but it was just totally unfazed by me. It came in, and it landed on my bedside stand while I was reading a book, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. That's a really cool sign. So I close my book and I'm getting tired, so I lay down and the moth like lands on my cheek and then it lands on the pillow right next to me and it stays there the entire night. And in the morning, I find it, it's kind of like fluttering on the window trying to get out, so I kind of help it out. Um, but yeah, I saw the girl again the next morning, and she said that she was gonna, so the Bread and Puppet, they do these circuses every week, I can't remember whether it's every Saturday or Sunday, but it's on the property, there's this huge rock quarry. So there's this huge dip in a grass field, and they have hundreds of people from all around who come, and they'll just come on the slope of the field and watch the performance. They'll have like a school bus in the middle of the quarry, and then they'll be bringing out the costumes and the puppets and do it yada, 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 yada with the music and everything. And so the girl said, I'm going to come to one of the circuses. I'm going to come to one of the circuses this summer. So I was really excited. I was like, I don't know why I didn't think to get her phone number or anything, but I was like, she's going to come to the circus. It's all right. It's all right. So every circus, I was looking out for her. I was like, where is she? I mean, it was a big crowd, so I was always scanning the crowd looking for her, but I never found her. And it just made me really depressed. I was like, I missed it. You know, God gave me this opportunity and now it's gone. And, you know, God's trying to punish me or something. Like, maybe I just wasn't courageous enough. Maybe I didn't step up, and maybe God is just taunting me or like trying to humiliate me. Because I had told people about this thing, and then they're like, oh yeah, it kind of looks like maybe you shouldn't believe in that God anymore, huh? You know? Just totally humiliated. But so then I was just kind of like, what am I going to do with my life? So I decided to come back to Koinonia and try out trial membership with them. Became like a novice with them, but kind of like deflated, kind of like depressed through the process. Just kind of like, well, I mean, this is the best thing going for me. Let me just stick to it. And then Tanisha came as an intern, and it was also kind of at a point where I was like, you know what? I don't know if I'm really, this is my calling. I'll say that. But anyways, as Tanisha and I kind of got to know each other, we like recognized that we had a very strong romantic attraction. And actually, her and I both independently told a friend of ours that we were attracted to each other, Brandon and Alana, and they were really cute about the whole thing. They didn't tell either of us. But yeah, so it got to the point where they had to like exile Tanisha because she wasn't supposed to be dating anyone at that time as a intern. So they were kicking her out of the community. And before she was supposed to go, it was a few days before or something, I had this dream where I was just this like just miserable, depressed wretch of a person, just having to be phony all the time. And I was walking around the world with one shoe and just trying to like pretend to keep pace with everybody, but I was just, I don't know, not really a whole person. So I decided to leave with Tanisha when she was kicked out. And so we left together on October 10th, 10/10, and sort of started our lives together from there. We wound up coming here to Berea. We were living in the barn for, well, I guess it was called Berea, now it's Atlanta Mennonite, but we were living in the barn for 2 months or so, and kind of persuaded John to marry us on November 22nd, my birthday, and that was 8 years ago. But one thing we began to realize as we talked to people is the first day of the 7th month in the Bible does not refer to January, or does not refer to July 1st. Rather, it refers to the Jubilee. And apparently, the year that we met and came together was, on the Jewish calendar, the Jubilee of Jubilees, which I didn't realize until after we had already left Koinonia and gone off on our own together. So it's just a funny way where I sort of misinterpreted something that was already misinterpreted, which was already misinterpreted, which was already misinterpreted. But somehow God found a way to fulfill that, you know? And I don't know. Sometimes the Advent season is actually a recognition of a world before Jesus' intervention in the world before Jesus. But it's also a recognition of waiting, expectant waiting for a second coming, which, is something that maybe it's silly to believe in that. Maybe it's silly to believe that Jesus is going to come again. But what are we waiting for? Are we waiting for anything, Like, especially as we look at the problems of the world and we look at situations, struggles, interpersonal struggles. Do we have hope for something? Are we waiting for something? Are we praying for something? Because if we work with God, if we contend with God for something, it's a messy process. It's a silly process. You can look like a fool, but at least you still have hope in something, And so that's the message I have to share today. But also just a thanks for allowing us to be married here 8 years ago. It was just such a beautiful moment, and treasure it forever. So thank you.